It's hard to balance a sympathetic villain. They need to conjure up enough sympathy, or at least pity, from the audience to, be sympathetic, rather than just rage-inducing. But they also need to clearly be a bad guy, or else you don't really have a villain anymore. But how do you do this? I'm going to be using examples from Amulet by Kazu Kibuishi, Percy Jackson and the Olympians by Riordan, and Archipelago by DeVera, also known as TheSilverTopHat. So, spoilers. Hi, I'm Haley. I'm an author who likes to analyze things. Let's get into the topic. In Amulet Book 4, we meet Max, who seems like an amiable enough fellow. He shows Emily around, and we like him at least well enough. And then he betrays her. He's now recategorized in our brain, taken from the good guy, or at least not a bad guy slot, and put into the bad guy slot. We're angry at him for the betrayal, and all the nice things that he did before are just kind of a delayed slap in the face now. He's not currently a sympathetic villain. He's just a regular villain. And a traitor at that, which often makes it feel worse. But then a bit later on, we get a look into his backstory. He lost someone he really cared about during the stupid war going on, and that's why he's on the bad guy's side. We can understand why he does. He's trying to get vengeance for his friend. But the important part here is that the story explained why Max acts the way he does, but it never justified it. He was very clearly in the wrong, and we were still able to understand where he was coming from and feel sorry when he died. Not in a, wow, we actually lost a wonderful person today kind of way, but in a, I'm sorry he's gone because I understand that I was looking at a person, however misguided. Or possibly I'm sorry it had to end this way type of way. He made bad choices, but they still made sense. It's similar for Luke Castellan from Percy Jackson and the Olympians. He was really cool in the first book, right up until he tried to kill Percy. From that point on, he becomes a prominent antagonist in the series. As the story goes on, we see that, Luke kind of has a point. The Olympians have been terrible parents. Kronos isn't a better option, but we can understand why Luke was working with him. He made a lot of poor choices, but in the end, he's seen as a person, one who sadly went down the wrong paths, chasing something potentially good. And at the end, when he sacrifices himself so Kronos won't win, it's sad, because we saw him as a person, one with a tragic story. My last example is Lucinda from Archipelago by DeVera, or TheSilverTopHat. She is introduced fairly early on in the series, but she really becomes important in Book 4. She's part of a crew of sadistic undead cyborg pirates, which I promise that makes more sense in context. The thing with this crew, though, is that each of them, the captain included, essentially sold their soul. The thing they got is different for each person. Captain Snow got to come back to life, Han got to be beautiful, and Lucinda, she got to avoid her pain. As we learn in Book 4, she used to live happily in an abbey, and then one day a stranger named Corvo came and stole her heart. He promised to return for her, but he never did. The heartbreak became too much to bear, so she joined the crew so she wouldn't have to hurt anymore. And this is enough to explain her story and turn her into a sympathetic villain, but later on we learn that Corvo was and always had been a disguise meant to bring Lucinda to the side of the Great Raven, who's the one trying to do the Faustinian bargain thing. And this just makes it even more sad. It sends her spiraling, ending in both the death of the one disguised as Corvo and herself. It's really sad, even though we only knew her when she was on the wrong side. I think the main thing for writing this type of character is explaining their actions without justifying them. They can justify their actions to themselves, sure, but if the character is framed as having been in the right, they're not so much of a villain anymore. A tragic past is an explanation, but it's not an excuse for hurting people. For sympathetic villains, we need to be able to understand them, and be able to go, I'm sorry that happened, without turning them into a misunderstood hero. It's a fine line sometimes. Also, they die a lot. My guess is that because dying just makes it more sad. So, that's my thoughts on the matter. Let me know what you think. Until next time, thanks for watching.